All right, it's a beautiful day here at Leo Carrillo State Beach in Malibu. I'm here with Araya, and we're thinking of making something of this scene behind me. I'm thinking of doing more of a zoomed out view of the scene. What are you thinking, Araya?
I'm gonna do sort of a mid zoom, I guess. I'm not gonna include the lifeguard tower. I'm trying to really focus on this dark rock and around the waves right there.
I'm painting on a 16 by 20 inch gessoed panel. I've got a split primary palette today. I've got phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, titanium white, yellow ochre, and cadmium yellow medium. You're painting on a 16 by 20 today?
Yep, 16 by 20.
And you're already digging into it.
Yeah, a little different approach today. I'm going to do a sketch rather than my normal sort of wash because I want to make sure the composition looks interesting.
Doing the usual here, mapping out the big shapes using a number 3 natural bristle filbert and some burnt sienna. And I think I am going to include the lifeguard tower here, although it's really small, but I do want to include that. And then I want to have a pattern of wet sand right here that'll be sort of a bluish color. And maybe a breaking wave right here. Wow, you're laying it in fast. Okay, so you've got the rocks up at the top, and you're including some wet sand down at the bottom as well.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull off having the rocks so high in the painting. That's kind of how the drawing turned out. I was about to change it, but I thought, you know, I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to try to make the color a little bit more intense as I go up. So the color is a little bit darker where the deeper water is. You can see the kelp out here, and this wave is really green. So I'm going to try to punch up the color around the area of focus here in the water.
All right, for my dark mixture, I've got ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and a bit of alizarin crimson. And I've thinned with odorless mineral spirits and a little bit of liquid. I'm just going to quickly map out the darkest darks. And I am keeping the mix pretty thin. I do want to have the darks be transparent. I don't want the darks to feel too heavy either. And by keeping them transparent, they will not feel as dark and heavy. Added some yellow ochre to the mix for the shadows on this cliff. Also quite a few shrubs up towards the top. But for now, I'm just indicating the shadow shapes below the plants. I'm using a number 6 natural bristle flat, and I'm hoping that this brush will keep me from getting involved with too much detail. I am squinting at the scene to simplify it and just looking at the big shapes as usual. My process has not changed much over the last 5 years. And I occasionally experiment with different techniques, which I think is a good thing to do, but I always return to my the method that I've settled on, like I say, in the last 4 or 5 years, and that's because it works and it gets me the results I'm after. But like I said, I think it's good to experiment, just to see if there is maybe a method or a process that will that I'll like better. But so far, that has not happened. And that process is really simple. Just sketch out the big shapes and then block in approximate colors, working dark to light, and then come over those colors with more accurate colors and values, and then clean up the details or add whatever details are necessary, and that's it. Done. I like what you did with those rocks in the foreground.
If I didn't get those rocks in the foreground in right away, I think it would be too tedious to do it at the end, and I would lose. It's a big part of the composition, but I didn't want them to be very crisp. I wanted them to be a little bit blurry.
Yeah, and also they're a dark value, so they really do stand out, and it makes the white water stand out, which is nice.
Thank you.
For the sky, starting with a mix of titanium white and ultramarine blue, and I'm using some Williamsburg brand ultramarine that Araya squeezed out for me to experiment with. It's definitely a thicker paint out of the tube than Winsor & Newton or Utrecht. So far so good. The value's a bit dark, but that's all right. I will be adjusting it later. Got some titanium white here with the alizarin mixed in for some fog in the distance. The horizon is visible beyond these rocks. Quite a bit of white water around the rocks, and then obviously some breaking waves on the beach. I added a bit of my dark mixture to my water mixture, just because I'm seeing some purple tones in the water. Going with a mixture that is similar to my sky mixture for the wet sand. And the wet sand is reflecting the sky, so it makes sense to use a similar color, especially as a starting point. For the dry sand, I'm going with a mixture of titanium white, yellow ochre, and a bit of burnt sienna. And the most important thing at this point is just to cover the panel with approximate colors and values. Everything in painting is relative, so I can't really hone in on the colors and values until I've got the whole panel covered. There's some sand up here as well. And these rocks are sort of a sand color. Something like that. And I've got a dark green mixture here for the plants on the cliffs. There are some shadows cast by these plants, and I'll probably include those. Shadows help convey a sense of light in the painting, so I'm always looking for shadows. What shadows can I incorporate? And I've got a blue-green mixture here for the tower. I'm actually more interested in value at this point. The block-in is complete. I've covered the panel with approximate colors and values. So I step back about 10 or 15 feet, just looking at the overall composition, and I feel like I like the arrangement of shapes, so I'm going to keep going. And now I'm just going to work on making more accurate colors and values. Before I adjust the sky, I'm going to paint in the tower, because I'm going to use the negative space of the sky to carve out the positive shape of the tower. Adding the light portions. There's a bit of light at the top. The challenge when painting little bits of detail like this is to make sure they don't stand out. I want this little bit of detail to fit in with the rest of the painting. I'm using a number 6 natural bristle flat, and I've got it loaded with paint. And now I am carving out the shape of the tower. And it is sort of an awkward tool for the job. It's too big for the job. But again, I'm looking for brushwork consistency here. I have stopped using medium as well. I want this paint to be thick, and I want the brush strokes to be visible. And it's impossible to paint this tower with any kind of detail with this brush. The brush is just about as big as the tower. Paying attention to values here, in particular on the shadow side of the tower. Looks like you're having fun with those rocks right there. Getting some of the color of the rocks in the water. I experimented with that too. It can be difficult, but I feel like it's almost like a grayed down version of what's on the rock above, maybe? Is that what you figured out as well?
Version, yep, and a little bit greener.
I added some phthalo blue to this portion of the sky, and now I am adding some alizarin crimson and titanium white to lighten up the fog. Still using this number 6 natural bristle flat. I am stepping back from the panel every few minutes to judge the composition, but also the color. Seeing quite a bit of yellow in the shadow shapes, so I've added some yellow ochre because there's so much reflected light out here. At this point, I'm making adjustments with thicker paint, so I have loaded up my brush. I'm still using the number 6 natural bristle flat because it holds a lot of paint, and again, it's going to keep me from getting bogged down in detail. Adding some blue-green around the rocks. Ariah's final here. I love the variety of earth tones in the sand there. Also, you got that pop of color out at the point. This is a nice touch too here, the reflection of the white water on the flat water.
Thanks. Yeah, it's those little things sometimes you can forget about that really can tie a painting together.
All right, so here's what I finished up with. This painting took about an hour and a half to complete. It was finished on site. In the beginning, I mentioned that this was a 16 by 20. It's not. It's actually 11 by 14. I wish I had a 16 by 20. It would have been actually a bit easier, but I only had 11 by 14s with me. Anyway, I am pleased with the way this painting came out. I do think that the lifeguard tower sits well within the painting, and part of the reason is that I did use a large brush, so there is the consistency of brushwork that I was talking about. Again, the process here was just to map out the big shapes, then block in approximate colors, then come over with more accurate colors and values, and then add any other details that I feel are necessary, like these rocks in the foreground here. I feel like those add a bit of interest that helps to lead the eye into the composition. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's a Patreon support that helps keep me making these videos, and it's much appreciated. I'll also put a link to Ariah's Instagram down below as well, so check it out. Other than that, stay creative. I'll see you guys in the next video.